Give me one of the major foundations of the American system.
They created the Second National Bank of the U.S.
Very good. And why, Taylor, did they create the Second National Bank of the United States? Give me one of several reasons why.
Because the first bank expired.
Very good. So Gracie, what caused them though, other than the bank being expired, what other things happened that forced them to say, hey, we need a Second National Bank?
The individuals were starting up their own banks, and the number of banks in the states were getting really big.
And it was not working, and so it was actually hurting the economy. Very good. And so they started the Second National Bank of the United States. Now, Will, Mr. Video Man, tell me what the second major foundation of the American system was.
They issued a protective tariff.
Very good. And what does a protective tariff do, Courtney?
It would protect the U.S. economies.
How?
Well,
What is a protective tariff, Courtney? It's a tariff that protects somebody, right? Who's it protecting?
the citizens.
Yes. Nyabeth, who is the protective tariff protecting? What?
Individuals.
What type of individuals? What's that?
Americans.
American what? Merchants, yes, because we're placing a tax on foreign countries to sell their goods in the United States, and they're going to give that tax right back to you. It's the explanation I gave you on the Walmart. I'm going to save $1 for every loaf of bread I buy in Cody that I buy in New Orleans. But they're going to tax the Walmart in Cody for selling goods to me. And they're going to pass that on to you, so the bread probably in the end is going to cost exactly the same. So we've done a protective tariff to keep people to buy in New Orleans. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a bit. Okay, what was the third one, Kyle?
Developed a new transportation system.
Okay, and what was the purpose of that?
So it was easier for farmers and merchants to ship goods
To market. Very good. Yeah. So that's it. So let's take us to the next subtopic then, which is a little more detailed, and it's called the Protective Tariff of 1860. And this is a little bit better definition of what I mean by that. It was in 1816 that the Republican Congress enacted a protective tariff. Okay, that's when it was passed by the Republican-controlled Congress. Okay, in 1816, the Republican-controlled Congress enacted a protective tariff. Now remember, back in the early 1800s, new factories were springing up across the United States because of what? The Industrial Revolution. And what happened is, prior to America having their own factories, where had Americans gotten their goods? British factories, mainly. And the British manufacturers, really wanted to hurt new American factories. So they began to realize that if they took a loss, they still could get people to buy things because it was cheaper. So what these British factories were doing, and manufacturers, is they were bringing goods over to the United States and selling them below their cost. And they were actually losing money to keep what though? American interest, right? Well, that's why the protective tariff had come in. Now we're going to tax these guys so they can't afford to sell things below their cost, or they're really going to take a dive. Does that make sense? So we weren't going to allow these British manufacturers to bring their goods to American ports and sell them below their cost to try to drive the American factories out of business. We weren't going to do that. What would happen? Let's say the British were successful. What if the British are successful there and they bring their prices down? And because they bring their prices down, nobody buys anything from American factories, and now all American factories go out of business. Do you think those British factories and merchants are going to keep their prices? All of a sudden, what are they going to do? Boom! They're going to just extortion prices because there's no one to compete against. Well, the Americans weren't interested in that. And as a result of that, what they did is they provided protection for American factory owners and manufacturers by putting in this protective tariff. So you can see why it was done more clearly now, can't you? It's because the British were going to come over and sell everything below their cost, and run the American factories and manufacturers out of business, and as soon as there was no competition, they were going to jack those prices back up and make huge profits. Well, the American factory owners and the merchants demanded that the government provide them some protection from this British scheme, and so they passed the Protective Tariff of 1860. Now, when Congress adopted that, it levied high taxes on manufactured goods that were shipped into the United States, and it protected American industry and saved our economy. So that was a very, very important piece of legislation that was passed at this time in history to keep us afloat, because our job now is to get our country better economically. And who was the one that pushed that again so much? Henry Clay. Very good. Okay, that'll take us to our next subtopic, which explains the transportation issue of the American system, and that was a need for better transportation in the West. Now, let me ask you a question. Prior to 1810, where did most of the people live in the United States? East of the, Appalachian Mountains. So by 1810, the biggest part of the population of the United States lived east of the Appalachians. Were there people living west of the Appalachians? There were. Well, between 1810 and 1820, in that 10-year period, the population west of the Appalachians doubled to more than 2 million people. So prior to 1810, there were about 1 million people that lived west of the Appalachians. Everybody else lived east of the Appalachians. Well, between 1810 and 1820, the population west of the Appalachians doubled from 1 million to 2 million people in that 10-year period. It took all the years we've had a country to get 1 million people west of the Appalachians. And in just 10 years, it doubled to 2 million. Okay, well, we've had more states come into the Union between 1791 and 1820. And I'm going to tell you these states. So we're no longer 13 states. So I'm going to tell you the states that have come in from 1791 to 1820. I'm going to do them in order in which they came in. Okay? First state that came in beyond the 13 states was Vermont. And they came in 1791. Vermont. What might be, we'll just go out of order a little bit, and you put dates. What might be another state we have now that came in between 1791 and 1820? Alabama. Actually, Alabama was the last one, 1819. Alabama came in 1819.
Really would like.
You want them in order?
Yeah.
It takes the guessing game out of it. Okay, number from 1 to 9. And then we'll do it that way. There's always a compromise. The guy's going, this guy, why did I sign up for this class? I know what she's thinking. Number from 1 to 9. Number 1 is Vermont, 1791. Number 9 is Alabama, 1819. That's what I love about you guys. I'm telling you, I am historically in love with you guys. You guys are awesome. That's one of the best classes I've had in years. Okay, so we've got Alabama and Vermont. Give me another guess there, Shania. What might be another state that came in? Thinking about the area.
Ohio.
Shh. Shania? What? What did you say?
She said Oregon.
Yeah, she's like millions of miles off. Come on. Hey, come on now. Give Shania a shot. Ohio. 4th on the list, 1803. Ohio. 4th on the list, 1803. Nick? Shh. I'll get to you. Tennessee, 3 on the list. 3 on the list, 1796. Anna, you got another one? Tennessee was 1796. Okay, we got Vermont. Shh, quiet. We got Vermont, 1791. We've got Tennessee 3rd at 1796. We've got Ohio 4th at 1803. And we've got Alabama 9th at 1819. And Hannah just came up with another one. Kentucky number 2. Number 2, 1792. So 1, Vermont, 1791. 2, Kentucky, 1792. 3, Tennessee, 1796. 4, Ohio, 1803. 9, Alabama, 1819. Give me another one, Meg. Let's try them east of the Mississippi, baby. Okay, east of the Mississippi. Oh, there's all kinds of states.
Did you
Shh, Megan's on board here. What?
Mississippi?
Mississippi, 7. Mississippi 7, 1817. Mississippi is 7, 1817. Keller, come on, buddy. We got 3 left. Mississippi, 1817. Go ahead. Indiana, 6, 1816. The last 2 you should know one, the other one you might have some trouble getting. Think about what's important in that area for us. What's important?
Oh.
Well, what's more? Louisiana. Yeah, Louisiana number 5, 1812. Okay, Louisiana. Why do you think we were defending the heck out of that in the War of 1812? Yeah, okay. So we got Vermont 1, Kentucky 2, Tennessee 3, Ohio 4, Louisiana 5, Indiana 6, Mississippi 7, Alabama 9. I'm going to go right down the line. I don't want any interruption. Because if I call on Shania and it blurts out, then Shania gets the credit. I'm going to give 5 points extra credit to the person that comes up with the last one. Starting with Keller. Shh, now don't be giving it up to him. Okay, what's the 8th one? 1818. Who was it?
Arkansas.
No.
New Jersey.
No. New Jersey. No, good guess though.
What did Mississippi? What did you say?
What did it
Shh, gotta listen. Okay, Will?
Missouri?
Nope.
Maine.
Nope. Cody?
Illinois.
That's correct! Illinois!
It's Illinois, not Illinois.
Illinois, 1818.
You didn't pronounce it right.
I-L-L. I-L-L-I-N-O-I-S. 1818. You guys quit talking and start listening, you'll be better. Yes, Miss McGarvin?
So, when you said states have come in since 1791 to 1819,
1791 to 1820. These are the states that came in. I'll repeat them. Vermont, 1, 1792. Or, excuse me, 1791. Kentucky, 2, 1792. Tennessee, 3, 1796. Ohio, 4, 1803. Shh. If you guys keep talking, I'm going to quiz you up. I'm real close. So when I'm talking, you're not. Louisiana, 5, 1812. Indiana, 6, 1816. Mississippi, 7, 1817. Illinois, 8, 1818. And Alabama, 9, 1819. All those states came in. Now, there are 1 million more people west of the Appalachians. And during this time, Western settlers depended almost entirely upon the rivers or very poor roads for transportation. So up to this point, we've got rivers and very poor roads. That's why these Western farmers back, what we talked about before, didn't try to get their corn to market. They made whiskey out of it because it was too hard to get their corn from the west to the eastern coast. Now you think about that. You can sure float goods downriver, but how fun is that going to be to float them upriver? Okay? Now, at this time, before this transportation became better, what did they use to transport goods upriver? Same thing that Lewis and Clark used to transport themselves upriver. What they use? Keel boats. They were called keel boats. So keel boats are what were used to transport those goods upriver. Not easy to do. Very slow. Very laborious. Yep. Keel boat. These keel boats were made to go upriver, but they're very laborious. In other words, you had to get out and help it quite a bit, and it was slow as heck, so it wasn't working real well and very time consuming. Now, if you go over rough roads, it's gonna take you a long time to get there. And what costs every day you're traveling? Money, profits, okay? So, these roads we had were terrible also. So transporting goods over rough roads was very time consuming, very costly to the farmer. So we had to establish a good transportation system if we're gonna create a strong federal government economically. So when we talked about the American system, we talked about a new transportation system, right? From the western lands to the eastern coast, and that's what we're gonna do here. And the name of that road is what? The Cumberland Road. That's the road that's gonna be established to help this situation, the Cumberland Road. Moving on to the Cumberland Road. See how I set my subtopics up? Anybody know where the Cumberland Road started? Which state? Cumberland? Maryland. So you got to pay attention to this. Construction of a road from Cumberland, Maryland to what is now West Virginia actually began in 1806. So they actually started constructing a road, and it went from Cumberland, Maryland to what is now West Virginia. And it began in 1806. Is that very far? No. So think about that, okay? It's going to get farther. Well, obviously, construction stalled for a few years. But in 1811, they continued on, and the road pushed westward to as far as Ohio. So the original Cumberland Road began in 1806. It basically went from Cumberland, Maryland to what is now West Virginia, and obviously construction stalled. But in 1811, they picked things back up, and they pushed the Cumberland Road westward as far as Ohio. Well, between 1822 and 1838, they were given additional monies from Congress. And they extended the Cumberland Road across Ohio, across Indiana, and into Illinois, ending at Vandala, Illinois. So between 1822 and 1838, they got additional money from Congress to continue the Cumberland Road. And the road was extended all the way across Ohio, all the way across Indiana, and into Illinois, ending at Vandalia, by the way, that's how it's pronounced, Vandalia. Now, they changed the name at that time from the Cumberland Road to the National Road. So the name was changed from the Cumberland Road to the National Road. Now, let me ask you this question. Who's building this road? Federal government. Who's maintaining this road? States how? Go ahead. So they're building this from basically Maryland all the way into Illinois. When does the state start taking responsibility for the road? When it's crossed through their state. Very good. So the federal government financed it, but once it was completed through a state, then it was turned over to the states, which ran the highway or road. Not a highway, but a road. Now I'll tell you what, after the War of 1812, people started to move west, and by 1838, the reason why our population doubled was the movement. Now, did all those people that moved there get full use of the Cumberland Road? Because it wasn't really completed until when? 1838. But it did allow not only people to move west, but once it was completed, it provided an excellent road for people to get their crops to the road and then send it east. So that's what was done on transportation. So we've covered the Second National Bank, we've covered the protective tariff, and we've covered the transportation issue, all that made up the American system, which made our government better economically. And now we're going to have another election. This is kind of an interesting election. I'll tell you how poor the Federalist Party was at this point. Guess who they ran in this election?
Tompkins.
Nope,
Henry Clay.
nope, nope,
Nobody.
nobody.
Nice.
President Madison will run with Vice Presidential candidate Daniel D. Tompkins unopposed. They run unopposed in the election of 1820. Now, this is kind of interesting. Although he ran unopposed, he didn't earn every state's electoral votes. Somebody actually, one state, did not.
So
Madison ran with Daniel D. Tompkins for the Republicans against nobody.
So it's Tariff and then Monroe's.
No, did I say Madison?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, Monroe.
Oh.
Sorry. Madison Monroe. My fault. No. James Monroe ran with Daniel Tompkins unopposed for the Republicans, and he carried every state except for one. One state actually voted for somebody else.
Virginia.
Okay? Left to your imagination. Now, what I want to do now is I want to give you a profile on President Monroe, and then that's going to end this test material. So we'll have a review on Monday, and we'll probably test up about next Tuesday. So here is a profile on President Monroe. I love profiles. We do a few once in a while, so get used to it. Profile on President Monroe. Hey, a few things about him you may or may not know. James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758 in Virginia. James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758 in Virginia. And he attended high school at an academy by the name of Campbelltown Academy. What's it usually tell you if you're going to an academy? Wealthy, rich, but what type of school is it? Private. Private. Okay? So Monroe attends high school